Lady and gentlemen, boys and girl, welcome to the Dorman MMA channel. Thank you for tuning in. I know many of you enjoy voiceover work better than written text and to read, so here we go. Just a couple things right off the bat. A couple of sponsors of mine, Diamond MMA. It's obviously protection, groin protection. They're extremely comfy. I think a couple of people have already endorsed them on a much more public stage than this, but they're excellent. They don't give you that kind of uncomfortable feeling on like the side of you in between, like on your crease, top thigh. And the other one that I usually put at the end of my videos is BJJ Fanatics. Links to both will be in the description as always. Some of the photos that I've included for BJJ Fanatics are DVDs that I endorse myself. So, disclaimer, obviously you want to learn your fundamentals, everyone. Jabs, double legs, single legs, 1, 2, 3, what those mean before you even start thinking about things like flying attacks, especially flying attacks that are into submission or for the purpose of taking someone down, etc., etc. They're very dangerous. And not just that, in MMA context, some of them are totally impractical. And some of the examples that I used even aren't necessarily from an MMA standpoint. They're more from other martial arts or combat sports. So I put 1 foot or 2 foot jumpers, and who better to show if I'm gonna talk about jumping and leaping and flying attacks than the king himself, Mr. MJ. Here he is going off momentum and jumping off 1 foot, and I was slowing it down for that reason. Look at his head, he could have bit on the rim. And in contrast, a 2 foot jump, and he could have done this probably without momentum, and that's Vince Carter back in, I think, the late 90s, maybe early 2000s. Here's Jordan. He's anomalous, obviously, in the fact that he can use either 1 foot or 2 feet. But if you ever played basketball, you'll understand what I mean by 1 foot or 2 foot leapers. So they're different, and it's important to say that. So we're going to start off with some of the grappling ones. The first one I just call a gainer guard pass. A gainer is like when you move forward but do a backflip as your momentum is carrying forward. Usually you would kind of swing one leg around, and that guy ended up in side control from it, which is pretty cool. This is like a diving board pass. Like, remember when you used to try to do like a 1.5 off a diving board, at your friend's coolest swimming pool or whatever, if you were athletic anyway. And this one is one I really wanted to focus on as far as like dangerous, right? The flying scissor leg takedown is something we've seen, obviously, famously here with Silva and Shonen, where he goes from this directly into the heel hook. Anderson had a pretty terrifying little tap there. Years later, he'd have a similar moment, even more frightening. And the thing that I keep pausing on is people posting their hand for a reason, because that's the efficacy of the technique, is within finding balance. But there's a lot of ways that can go wrong, obviously. So that's a dangerous takedown. I don't really like it at any level, to be honest. Here are some flying arm bars. Depending on the scenario, I like them. I think that one right there was wonderful. The trick is normally to have control of the arm like a 2-on-1 before you'd put your hips up and over. I think that's probably the most incredible one right there, where the guy puts his leg all the way over the top. Flying triangles the same, although you usually would use like your foot as a source of like momentum, like a fulcrum point to then leap up. This is interesting though. This guy jumped up into like a rubber guard up against the fence and held on to it the whole time, turned that into a triangle slash armbar, which is pretty interesting. Now watch the head position here and the overhook combined with the bicep control, and that's how he gets the feet to cross over the head. And then all you have to do is really pull your own shin, maybe by the top of your foot, into the other leg before you can then close the triangle over behind the head. Now here, this is another one that's a little interesting. I wanted to find like variants on things. So it's basically a flying back take into a reverse triangle choke. Amazing stuff. And I'd be remiss to not include, although I tried not to use too much UFC. This is DJ's, of course, gut wrench suplex into armbar. One of the craziest things I've ever seen. He had to make a little adjustment, but I didn't want to belabor the point there. Brilliant, of course. And on to the striking, which most of it will be. I wanted to start out with some capoeira kicks, only because it's not flying per se, but it's sometimes can be. Here, this is similar to what a tornado kick would be. in say Taekwondo. And don't get caught up in nomenclature. Correct my nomenclature. It's pointless. I won't even pay attention to it. But the capoeira kicks are impressive to say the least, especially a lot of the compasso type things. Flying elbows, flying knees. The flying elbow was effective because it was a feint knee first, actually, so the guard fell of the opponent. And this is the same thing with this knee. You always kind of see people look down before they leap up, and unfortunately the camera doesn't always catch it, but that's usually the case with flying knees, is that you sell low to then leap up. And I'm showing you examples of momentum where they're kind of scissoring their legs mid-sequence, and there's some from a complete stop where they'll be off 2 feet. And they're off 2 feet, he's leaping forward. It's kind of like a leaping plumb with the knee, which is brilliant. And other times it's from an absolute stop, and you want to get somebody on their way down. So it's force meets force. It's very Newtonian physics. And of course we know about MVP doing that from a standstill against the other cyborg Evangelista. And that one fractured his skull pretty bad. I was gonna include a picture, but I figured it was kind of pointless. I have nothing against the guy. This is a little bit old school. Back when Thiago Alves was an absolute killer. He took out Matt Hughes at the time, and this is a nice angle of someone scissoring off of the one foot. So one leg propels the other to then strike. So he leaps off the foot that he's going to then use as a knee. Similar to like the mechanics of, say, a Superman punch. And of course, people love tornado kicks, and they also love the different names for them, because there's a 1,000. Everything from 360 roundhouse. Other times, the pretentious types will use, say, Japanese terms that no one understands at all, just to post on Reddit and impress their friends. I don't get it, but MVP landed that one for a knockout over at that UCMMA, I believe. And this one's pretty insane here. This shorter opponent uses a fake low kick to kind of generate the centrifugal force. So, you got to spin like a top. Now, one of the things that's also noteworthy, and I got another angle of the MVP here, is the defensive posture of the opponent looks like he thought that the lead leg was the intended strike there, like he was going to block a kick to the body. And you also want to pay attention to the way MVP whips his head around to see what he's attacking before he does. In all of these tornado kicks, that's essentially the idea, is to whip your head around as fast as you can. All spinning kick attacks really are that way. It's just that the tornado kick has that devastating amount of force generated because of the motion prior. No, this is not an agile version of Randy Couture. That is a beautiful axe kick, though, followed by a then left-footed tornado kick. And again, I found a good angle of this where you can see that he's already turned around and he's going to leap off his kicking leg, similar to how I pointed out with Alves earlier. By the time you get to that point where you're spinning and throwing the kick, where you're at the very last part of your pivot, if you will, that same leg that you're leaping off is the leg that you will kick with. So here, I thought this was pretty cool. I just found this randomly, but I'll call it a tornado elbow because it's the same kind of motion. Here, again, nomenclature crazy, but I grew up knowing this is a rolling thunder kick, and this is a good example of something that in MMA is just, the likelihood of this working with any efficacy is very small at best, we'll say. Of course, the Lyoto Machida versus Randy, and it feels like I'm picking on Randy, who's one of my heroes, for Christ's sake. I should be nice, but that one worked because with that right leg forward, it shouldn't have been the same leg that he kicked with, which seems a little odd in hindsight. But if Randy was expecting a kick, it was on the other side. And of course, there's some Superman / cage techniques included. I would do a whole video on the Superman jab and or punch if I was going to really cover this in depth, like George's version, because we both learned from Edgar and Film there, so it's the same house. Now I'm showing you two examples of something that has morphed, right? Jose Aldo does the fence off 2 right cross, and someone else does it a little bit later in a smaller organization for an actual finish. And then you see Anthony Pettis do the Showtime kick, which was the biggest deal in the world forever. And then you see Zabit in order doing things. I mean, he ends there with the Sugar Sean O'Malley spinning back fist into high round. But he was doing every technique you've kind of seen Pettis do as the sole proprietor, if you will, of that technique like it's nothing. He's doing it as though it's sequitur. It's absolutely incredible, and I think most people know I'm a fan of his beats by now. Moving on. This is definitely a leaping, spinning back kick. There's a bit of a hook on it, so I mean, we could go over names and get into the intricacy of what we want to call things all day, but that's really not the point. This was that was a 2-foot jump that resulted in a heel to face, and once again there was one, and I put that it was similar to Tension's Rolling Thunder that we saw last year. I think that was I don't know, 8 or 9 months ago, where he's countering sort of backwards with a flashy kick, and it's only against a right hand, which is absolutely incredible. Here we have the downward roundhouse, aka Bali kick, or 540. I mean, again, if we play the name game, I could have just written a dissertation on the interesting nomenclature of martial arts, but that's interesting to probably 3 people on the planet. There's the kick that Yair's tried a million times. Again, it's not really MMA friendly because you don't want to end up on your back if you can avoid it, correct? Correct. Okay, now this is like the side swipe from, say, tricking, and Pettis used to do more of this kind of thing, especially in his WEC days. He trusted his guard, it seemed like, more, so that was part of it. But again, I don't really necessarily promote a lot of these techniques unless you have an absolute ninja level understanding of Taekwondo. And on that note, these are right up that alley. These are 2-touch kicks, or 2-touch techniques. There's different ones. It's not one technique. Everyone kind of thinks of the Raymond Daniels. This is the version where the first kick kind of propels the second. It almost, again, I'll use the word fulcrum, but it almost acts as though it's one. There's the crane kick kind of version like Page, and it looks like that Muay Thai. I think he's Muay Thai, yeah. It says Tiger Muay Thai. Those guys are using, which is just one leg propels the other, and even the one that Yair finished touchy-feely with. But the first one that Yair did is a good example of using, say, a low kick to then set up a high round. And, of course, the 2-touch spinning back kick version, which is now all the rage. That one's amazing. I don't know what organization that was for, where it went straight to the liver. But, of course, the Raymond Daniels one is spectacular. And as my main man, Coach Rufus, would say, that is high-level martial arts faux show. And here I put just some combinatory things together. That is a spinning back kick to the liver, followed by a spinning back fist the other way with the left hand. Pretty incredible. Followed by a rolling thunder into an armbar. This is insanity. This looks like an amateur show too. See how the person's left arm got caught up in that kick, and then the guy turned it into a belly down knee bar, or armbar rather. Amazing. A tornado kick into the 2-touch Raymond Daniels style there. This is brilliant as well, and they're wearing tie shorts. I mean, this is super impressive. I do not know those fighters, unfortunately. I'd love to give them the credit that's due. Again, I just want to just give a quick shout out to my sponsors for this. DiamondMMA.com. Again, all that stuff, all the links to that, and BJJ Fanatics, my codes, etc. will all be linked down in the description. And thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I'm going to leave a separate kind of question to everybody in the bottom. I mean in the comment section. So make sure to give me feedback, but I didn't want to include what I'm going to say and or ask in the video itself. It's going to be just part of the comment section. We'll have a discussion about it. I have a question that some of you probably know a lot more about than I do. Okay, thanks for watching. Cheers.